Your Creative Push, episode 304.
This is the event, like you have to execute here and now within this time period, and that's it.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Matthew Miller. Matthew is an artist in Tallahassee, Florida, who likes to paint natural beauty and human activity from life. Creating live paintings at sporting events, music venues, and more, he paints with an energy that can be seen in the final product. And Matthew was on this show back in episode 238, and since then he has been a great friend to the podcast and a great friend to me, and we decided that we needed to catch up, so we jumped on a call. I recorded it, and even though we weren't necessarily planning for it to be an episode, we decided that we got to enough great stuff that it would be an episode for you all to hear. Just to give you a recap from the last episode, if it was too long ago and you forget, or if you haven't heard it, after that episode, Matthew made some big changes to pursue art full time. And some things went well, some things didn't, and he learned a lot about what does work and what does not work for him as a person and as an artist, and we get to all of that in today's conversation. Matthew talks about moving to Tallahassee to finish the PhD program that he had started a few years ago, and how jumping into art full-time jeopardized how special art was to him, and it actually became a stressor. Matt talks about his experience working on athletes' art at sporting events and the stark contrast of working alone in the studio. Matthew also talks about dealing with personal struggles and the need for art to be therapy like it was back when he first picked it up. He also talks about pursuing new things, like plein air painting, and also his increased interest in cold exposure, and also a new way that he's been communicating with his friends that he has found to be very effective. And finally, Matthew talks about the power of flow states and how hard it can be to get into those flow states with our environment in this technological age. Like I said, Matt and I just jumped on a call to talk to each other. I'm so glad that I recorded it because there were so many good nuggets in there. And Matt is a guy that really thinks about the way that he pursues life and the way that life affects him. The conversation continued after what I have in this episode, so I do apologize if it's a little weird of a fade-out outro today, but I know you're going to be inspired by another conversation with my friend, Matthew Miller. Enjoy.
And I think I'm good to go.
Cool, man. How's it going?
It's going all right. I moved back to Tallahassee, Florida about 6 weeks ago. And I'm actually going to be finishing a PhD program that I had. I know we discussed that I dropped out of it a few years back, and kind of had a little bit of a change of heart over the past winter, and I've always regretted it not finishing. So I'm going to start back up in the fall, probably spend 1 to 2 years on that. And then I'm not sure from there. I'm still painting and trying to make that work out as a side gig. I am back working in fitness again. The last year did not work out as well as I was hoping. I took some pretty big risks, and things didn't really pan out as hoped for a lot of reasons. And so now I'm kind of rebuilding. And what I've learned, the biggest lesson is that I kind of dove in to trying to make the art work out full time about a year ago, kind of shortly after we had done our previous interview. Maybe I wasn't ready, or putting myself in that position kind of jeopardized how special art was to me, I guess, because I was taking it a little too seriously, and it became a little bit more of a stressor than anything. And so now I'm kind of back trying to find a healthy balance where I'm supporting myself with other things, at least for a while, so that I don't have to treat art as something that I don't want it to be right now.
Yeah, it's such a sick, weird, hard balance to find.
It is. It really is. And that's what I was, when I emailed you originally And you had kind of been discussing about your experience with trying to hammer out your book in a month. And a lot of things that you said got me really thinking about like what is the proper role of our creative pursuits in our life. And I think a lot of us probably start like just with pure passion. And when you get close to that point of being a professional and, actually creating bigger projects that you can monetize, and once it comes from passion into some sort of a business venture, it's really tricky. It's tricky because I think I'm not saying that other activities or other professions don't have that special quality that our creative pursuits do. But, I think about with fitness, for example, it's just a different animal, when it's creativity. Because I guess like when I started painting, like I always tell people like I was literally like self-medicating with art therapy, and I got addicted to it. And it really was a special thing for me in my life. And without really intending, it did pick up, and it became this potential career, a source of income. But then it starts to morph, and it becomes less of that special therapeutic activity and then more of a stressor. And it's a tough balance, because I found myself painting things that I didn't want to paint for people I had never even met online. And it lost that quality. And I'm trying to get it back now. I've been painting a lot more in the last few weeks. I'm getting to a point. I just started working. So it's been a real tough transition for me lately, getting settled here. But now I'm kind of working full time. I'm actually going to get paid at school for being like a teaching assistant while I'm there. And then I guess here's the other sick part of it is by refocusing on trying to support myself and get all the other aspects of my life. Because I really think that I neglected a lot of important aspects of my life as I was really pursuing art, and that was a mistake. And I think art will always go better if all my other ducks are in a row. And that's kind of my focus right now is I just want to get like my life going. I want to get a better social life going. I want to get healthy and get outside and all that sort of stuff. And I think once all that's kind of in place, I'm going to feel a lot better about maybe diving back in and taking it more seriously when the time is right.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. For me, it's like I certainly can't do anything creative very well. I can like edit the podcast maybe because that doesn't require too many like creative muscles. But aside from that, like if I have other stressors going on, whether it's like if my wife and I are stressed out about something, like we're not fighting or whatever, but like just trying to work something out, that's like number one on my mind. Or if like money's an issue, like that's number one on my mind, like going to work and making money. Like if I have one of those like big stressors on my mind, I can't be creative at all. So I can definitely understand if you make that leap and you immediately kind of like dig your heels into the sand because you're like, oh, wait, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like it was supposed to feel. So I think it's fine to backtrack, and I actually don't think it's a failure, because on the podcast recently we've been talking a lot about like it's really important to have those moments where you're like, okay, this doesn't work, and then you like try something different. You're like, okay, this doesn't work. It's like very valuable to have that information so that like not to put yourself necessarily that deep in that situation. Especially when, like you said, art is a different animal, and you need like, as you said, your ducks to be in a row to like, to be able to kind of like let loose and get in that flow state we talked about in the last episode.
Yeah, exactly. And now I guess the struggle is I do have a lot of other things on my plate right now, and I'm kind of looking at what my life's going to be like over the next 6 months or a year. And it's a little frustrating and overwhelming. When am I going to actually find the time to really put in painting and pursuing all that kind of stuff? And it's like, it's such a struggle, because when I was putting in more time on painting, a lot of the other things weren't working out and the money wasn't even quite coming in. And but the way you put it is it's a constant process of trying different directions and changing course. And I really picked up painting like just under 3 years ago. And I think when we had talked, I thought I had kind of found this niche that was going to work out for me with this focusing on endurance sports and doing these custom portraits for athletes. And I did very well. I mean, I quit my job and I moved back to my hometown last fall to save money, and I thought I could just focus on that. I traveled around. I went to like 4 or 5 different Ironmans and painted. I sold all the paintings I did, and I got a bunch of commissions. But then I ended up just stuck inside all winter, like painting by myself in my room. And I'm not particularly happy in my hometown of St. Louis. It's gray and cold all winter. I ended up getting like super depressed. I know last time we had talked, like, and this is kind of where when I talk about art therapy, I have struggled with pretty debilitating insomnia for like 5-6 years. I think the way I just described it last time was that like I was maybe past it or in the clear, and I really haven't been. It's been an ongoing struggle up and down. And living in Colorado, I just smoked a lot of weed at night. And that's kind of how I was able to manage that problem. Now, for the last almost year, I've been in states where they can throw me in a cage for using it. So it's harder to come by. So I've tried to quit and go long periods without it, and I fall apart. And that's what happened to me this winter. Is I thought I would just cut it out and try to reestablish like healthy, natural sleeping patterns. I wasn't training at 5 a.m. anymore. So I thought maybe if I just give myself some time, everything would kind of normalize, and it really didn't. And to be honest, like my life fell apart. I was depressed. I didn't have the energy to paint or to do anything. And so now I'm rebuilding. I'm really kind of rebuilding from that right now. And it's a little overwhelming, a little frustrating that's how things kind of turned out for me. But, I'm dealing with it.
Right. Well, and I do think sometimes it comes down to that like rebuilding phase of like breaking it all down, going down to like back to the basics. And, I think it's a great thing to go back and finish your degree as well. Getting into that position where it's just like, I don't want to say that you hit rock bottom or anything like that, but like hitting that kind of point of depression where like just everything's not working. You need that reset. And then you kind of can get to that point where you can start everything in a new, like at new speeds. You can get back to your art slowly again. You can start a new passion, then you can actually physically relocate is really helpful too. Do you find that like getting back to your art now, is it starting to feel like therapy again, where it was so enjoyable for you before and so helpful for you before? Do you find that it's like serving that purpose now?
It is, I wish it was easier to do. I've been like renting a very small apartment just temporarily until I find something longer term. So I don't have like a space set up to paint. So I paint like outside on this porch, and it's like, it's like in the 90s and humid. So it's that is summer, and I'm just drenched in sweat. The paint is drying on my brush as I'm applying it. I'm sweating onto my palette, but I don't know. I kind of like it. I like it when painting is a little more of a challenge, cause I really got obsessed when I was live painting in Denver, in dark at nightclubs with a headlamp I'm getting bumped into. And like, I love that. Like, that's really, and that's why I think why art why I wasn't enjoying it as much over the last year, because I wasn't doing that. Art was this thing that got me out around people, and when people are around, they're saying nice things about your art, and you're socializing, and it was just this really like powerful activity. And I'm looking to regain that. I know like live painting isn't really a thing here like it is in a city like Denver, but I'm going to try to create some opportunities here and get that back. But the other thing that I've been doing in the meantime is I love the natural beauty of this area, the trees, there's beaches nearby. And so I kind of committed to spend this summer to doing plein air painting and just going outside and trying to learn how to paint scenery. And it's been a challenge. It's been tough. I've been out a lot, and I end up with no very good paintings, or I'm still trying to find my style. But that's a good thing, because I have found like a new challenge, a new thing to get excited about that's really motivating me to get out and try new things. And I'm not trying to, it's a new thing. So it's a skill that I'm learning. So I'm not going into the paintings with a mindset of like, oh, I got to paint something that like maybe I can put on social media and sell. Mm-hmm. It's really just about me pursuing excellence. And it's been a challenge, but I'm slowly starting to kind of find my style, because I was watching a lot of Bob Ross and trying to apply like what he does with oil paint, but applying it with acrylics. And then I kind of realized like, well, this is nothing like my style that I use on like portraits or other subject matter. So I'm trying to experiment, and I've hammered out a couple scenery paintings lately that, like you could tell like this is a Matthew Miller painting, and I'm proud of them. But it's tough. It's definitely a different subject matter to tackle, and that's made it fun. And I'm still playing around with a lot of other stuff. But a main priority of mine now is like I want to get back into live painting. Either find some nightclubs where I can go once a week, or I'm on a campus where like football is like religion. And I figure if I go bring my painting stuff down where there's thousands of wealthy alumni tailgating, and I hammer out like a Florida State football painting, that's probably a very promising approach to take if I want to hammer out some quick sales on the spot like I used to do.
Yeah, you definitely have a good mindset for like finding those things. When you were talking about like live painting and how there's people bumping into you and you have your headlamp on, do you find it's like I feel like for most people it would be like really hard to get in the zone because they're so used to doing it like alone. But do you find that like that helps you to like limit the distractions of like maybe your mind having all those like other inputs coming in like around you that helps you to get into that flow state easier?
Yeah, and it's probably an individual thing, and I've thought a lot about my personality as an artist and my like motivational style, like what fires me up, because I listen to a lot of these podcasts and other personal development. I'm very deep into that stuff. Like I'm always trying to do work on myself and expose myself to that kind of stuff. And one lesson I'm learning is like I have my own kind of motivational style. I'm learning like what fires me up and what lights me up. And it's going to be very different for a lot of people. But I've always compared live painting to something like doing a triathlon. Is like it's like this is the event, like you have to execute here and now within this time period, and that's it. Like I can't just put it down, I'll finish it tomorrow or touch it up later. It's like this is what you're working for, and there is a buildup. Like there's a mental buildup, there's a preparation. I'm kind of mentally like if I know what I'm going to paint, I'm kind of mentally painting in my mind ahead of time, just to kind of like rehearse so that when I am on the spot, it becomes a little more natural to me. And yeah, I think that the challenge of the situation forces me into that zone. It really does put me in that place, because there were times when I would be painting on stage at a packed, hot venue, and I'll start painting, and then I just kind of lose myself. I forget what's around me. Next thing I know, like I'm halfway done with the painting, and then I take a break and I turn around and I see just like, hundreds or thousands, maybe thousands at some point of people around. And I just didn't even realize it. So I think there definitely is something special about putting yourself in those positions where it forces your brain to like hyper focus and get into that zone. And the live painting is really what does it for me, because I don't know how many times over this past winter and even recently when I'm painting by myself at home, or even when I'm out painting scenery, like no one's around, there's really no pressure. And if you screw up, it's a lot easier to let that screw up kind of kill your vibe, or you think like, oh, well, this is just too far gone, I'm just going to pack up and quit. Whereas under other circumstances, like you can't quit, like you're here, people are watching, like you've committed to being here for this time and you're going to complete this painting no matter what. And it just forces you to like keep working.
Yeah, it's like crowdsourcing, like a workout buddy or an accountability partner. Way to look at it. Yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of ways that like you can get that same like in the zone vibe, and that same kind of accountability when you're in nature. I don't know, like if like animals can be judgmental, or maybe you could like somehow find a way to like live stream or something like while you're outside. I don't know. That's
a good suggestion. And I've, social media is, man, that's something I'm struggling with. I went off it for quite a while, and I'll be honest, like I personally feel better when all this stuff is absent from my life. It's unfortunate because I do like you need it. Supposedly you need it to do well and to do business these days. It certainly helps, but it also gets in the way. And during the times when I'm not on there actively, I find that just in my day-to-day life, like I'm not seeing things that are upsetting me. And even if I just go for a walk, I feel like when I'm not consistently checking that stuff, or I don't have the device buzzing, I can go out the door and go for a walk and really settle into a really peaceful state much more easily than if I'm more consistently connected to things. And I like that. I like having more control over my brain and over my cognitive resources. And when I'm connected, I mean, these things are addictive. They're created to be addictive. The apps are all developed by very smart people who make them to be addictive. That's how they make their money. And it's not even a secret anymore. And this is me. I'm not judging anyone else for using it, because I struggle to find the healthy balance with it, where like once I'll go off it and I'll be great. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to use it because like it does help sales. I make sales online, and social media and all that stuff helps to get my art out there. But then when I start going down that road, I find myself checking it and stressing about it more, and just my quality of life goes down. And I've been thinking a lot about, I go on like Instagram and I this Instagram stories thing that I've used here and there. But then I see artists, and it's like, you must just be walking around all day, every day with your phone, like just snapping videos and putting it on Instagram for your story, just like nonstop. And if you can pay someone to be like your personal cameraman, then like I'm all for it. But it really makes me wonder like whether some of these people are actually enjoying what they're doing. If you're stopping and you're grabbing your phone and you're thinking, oh, like I should do a social media post. Like, are you really enjoying it? Like, and this is a decision that I think I'm making, is that like when I'm painting or when I'm working out, if I'm outside in nature, if I'm working out, if I'm painting, these are sacred activities to me. And I'm not sure that I want to bring technology into those activities at this point, because it dirties it for me. It kills the experience for me. Some people might be fine with it, but I think right now on principle, I'm trying to be more disciplined about that. And I want to honor these activities by just keeping the social media, keeping the posts away, and because I notice it. You'll see something in your brain, like there's a part of your brain that's like, ooh, hey, snap a pic, and like this would be a good social media post. And like you're interpreting reality through this like filter of like what would be a good Instagram post and what can I say and what hashtags can I use. And like there's like this module in your brain that's like running all the time, like interpreting your reality in that way. And like I want to shut that part of my brain off. Like if I see a beautiful sunset or I'm going for a nice pleasant walk or I'm painting a picture, it's like, that's for me. Like this is real. This is personal. This is sacred. And I don't want to have to share it. I don't want to have to reinterpret it or snap a pic and post it to the internet. Like if you want a sunset, get your own damn sunset. If you want to sneak peek at like my process and like you want to look at my sketches or my work in progress, like go do your own damn painting and experience it for yourself. Like I don't want to contribute to people like vicariously living the artist's life through me. I'd rather people just do it themselves.
Right. Yeah. It's that weird focus shift that is kind of, I think, detrimental when technology becomes or like your social media account becomes like the most important part of like, building your audience as opposed to getting your art. I mean, we talk all the time on the podcast about like becoming a creative person all the time and not just like, you have your normal life and then like you get like 1 hour to get to your writing or your art or your music or whatever it is. And then you go back to your normal life. It's like trying to like having that sacred like 1 hour time that you can get to your creative passion, like bleed into like your normal life so that when you're going about your normal life, you can think of life like an artist. And I think that people are doing it the opposite way because their phone now and their normal life starts to integrate itself into your sacred art time. And you're like, okay, like I just like worked for 10 minutes. Let me show like a progress shot.
Yeah.
Like you're all the time thinking about getting your social media presence involved with your art, and it should be the opposite. You should be like completely focusing on just yourself and the piece, yourself and whatever you're working on, and not thinking about your audience because it's for you and not for them. Because when you start thinking about too many opportunities to get them involved, you're, I think, really sacrificing not only the quality of your work, the amount of time that you can put into it, but like just like what it means, the significance of it.
Yeah, and what you were getting at a little bit is what got me thinking, like trying to live like more of an integrated life, and that's just, I think that's this challenge. I'm going back to school because I'm almost done with this philosophy PhD. All I have to do is write a dissertation, and I kind of hit on some ideas that I guess kind of integrate a lot of the things that I'm obsessed with. And we talk a lot, like last time we talked a lot about flow states, and that's really like, I think that finding those activities and those experiences that put you in that place, and maybe it's me, like I think about this a lot. And I'm not alone in this, but I think I've got a hole in my soul or some neurochemical deficiency, or, I talk about the sleep problems that I have. Like, I actually think there's like, I have like a head injury that's causing a lot of this stuff. So, and you just use your imagination. When you have chronic insomnia, there's other negative effects. So I really, it's always a struggle to find peace and find, feeling good and feeling at peace for myself. And that's why finding things that put me into a flow state and shut down the chatter and put me in my own happy place is maybe even more important for someone like me. And I think that's probably what drives a lot of creative people and a lot of artists. Some people, maybe they don't really need that, and they're kind of humming along through life, and they're just fine going about their day to day without diving into an art project or like needing to go outside into nature like daily in order to like consistently feel good. but anyways, my dissertation that I'm planning to write is about the power of flow states and the challenges of our environment these days with all the technology that we have. It's so radically new that I think it's an ethical issue. It's morally relevant at this point, because if all of this information flow is such a distraction, and if it's really this much of a barrier to me and probably millions of other people getting into their happy place and having those like meaningful experiences, and it's not even just art, it's conversation, just being with someone and getting deep into a discussion and being fully present to the people around you. And if these technologies are getting in the way, like that's a moral issue. And it's new and it's not quite being discussed. And I actually want to bring some attention to that. So I really think that, thinking in terms of like in ethics, we talk a lot about virtues of, courage and justice and kindness and generosity. And I think today, in order to live a fully good human life, we need to develop new types of virtues that enable us to manage all of these new technological forces and preserve and protect and be stewards of our own brains, of our own attention span, of our own mental focus, so that we can enjoy the best of what life has to offer. And this has really been on my mind a lot. And I've been kind of researching a little bit of the science and the philosophy behind these ideas, but also I'm at a point where I know that I'm not fully living that, being the living example of those values. And I've been taking more steps over the last probably 6 months or so to fully put some of these ideas into practice in my life. And that does mean that to practice what I preach, I do need to be more disciplined about how I'm using the technologies so that I can fully enjoy these experiences.
Yeah, and I do think it's very important. I think that it's something that people don't think about, myself included. Like I would think about the fact that, I'm on social media a lot just as an individual. And kind of like you were talking about before, like I'm participating in like the, essentially giving away my moments, like giving away my personal, sunsets or whatever to contribute to, everybody else sharing their sunsets or what they're eating or their kids or announcements or whatever it may be. I started watching some YouTube videos. I'm sure you've seen them too. Just like people that are coming out, people that worked for Facebook or Google that are coming out and talking about, yes, we actually created this to be addictive, to like literally hijack your attention, and everybody's becoming addicted to it, and it's like really scary. And I went on like a binge of watching like 3 hours or 4 hours of like video after video, and I realized, this is really meta, but it was like essentially that was YouTube seeing me watching a video about becoming addicted to social media, and it just gave me 10 different like options for what to watch next about exactly what I was watching. I was like, oh my God, like as I'm aware of this, I'm not even aware of this. You know what I mean?
Sick.
Yeah. But it's on the other hand, it's like this podcast wouldn't really exist if it was just for like word of mouth. If like, yeah, it's great to be able to like connect on Skype with somebody, and that technology is great for that, but it's also great for like sharing the podcast out. Like I probably have like in the tens, like 10 to 20 people that are listening to the podcast because I told them about it, like from my mouth, and the thousands of other people that are listening are all from social media. So it's like, it's a tool, but it's also like a scary tool that can like take over. So it's like really hard to find that balance. So good for you for trying to help the world kind of figure that out.
Yeah, and honestly, like what I'm trying to figure out what works for me, and also at the same time, like I have been kicking around the idea of starting a podcast.
Yes, do it.
And this is partially of why I'm going back to school. Is the reason I wanted to get a PhD in philosophy is that like when I was in high school, I decided I want to be a philosophy professor because I had gotten exposed to some philosophical ideas, and I went to all boys Catholic school. So it was like the first time that I was told like how to think instead of what to think, and just got exposed to these new ideas, and I was forced to think critically about big questions, the questions of like what it means to be a good person and live a good human life. And I thought, wow, this is very powerful. I would like to be an educator of sorts and get young minds to start thinking more critically about things that matter. And that's really what has driven me in my educational pursuits. And I think of it as kind of a mission of my life. Like that's actually possibly more important than being an artist. I mean, art is very important to me, but that's what's kind of drawn me back to finishing this degree is I feel called to somewhat of a mission. And with the internet, there are other ways. I don't have to just try to be a college professor in order to get through to people or to be employed as a teacher. There are so many other ways to get a message out. And really my goal is I do want to spend a year or so like writing an academic dissertation and like doing like good rigorous research and writing, but then take that and rewrite it and repackage it for popular audiences, because I don't want to be stuck in academia having debates about obscure topics that 99% of people don't even care about. I want to spend this couple of years and like master something that will be relevant to the general population and turn it into a popular book or be a public speaker and use social media and podcasting perhaps in a responsible way to get a message out. And I really do feel like I'm at this point where I look back, I'm 33. I look back on the last, 10 or 15 years of my adult life. There really hasn't been like a really nice, coherent progression, but I can look back on all the different directions that I've gone and mistakes I've made and like ups and downs and research that I've done. And I feel like, at this point, there's a lot up in my head that I really feel like I want to share and get out there, or even just like forcing myself to put it into words and speak it, even just for personal satisfaction. And so I don't know, like that's what I thought it'd be interesting to talk to you about this idea about like just like I know I need to do it. It's bothering me. I'm feeling so much resistance to it, but I know that like I got it. I don't know. Like I'm nervous that I don't want to start it and have it like fizzle out. Like I want to start it and like do it right, but then I don't want to overthink it because that's preventing me from just starting. And like I'm at that place right now, and I'm sure like you've been there, and I'm like almost like reaching out to people like hoping that they'll like keep pushing me to do it, so I'll finally do it. And that's where I'm at on that issue.
Yeah, well, you talk about like art therapy and how art like helps you to get past some of your just like things that you're going through. And I mean, that's what this podcast was for me, was to be able to kind of like toy with these ideas, to talk with people about these ideas. These, it's like almost an embarrassing thing of spending 2 years and not doing the thing that was on my mind that I knew that I had to do, that it sounds like maybe you're thinking about it, but like, to just be like, normalize it and realize that like other people go through it too. And it's just like a very helpful thing to be able, for me selfishly, to just be able to talk about. And like every time I like, that's, I was happy to just jump on with you just to talk, because I always feel much better. Like it's like working out. It's like working out those like issues that like I think we all have. So like to be able to whatever topic you're interested in, and to be able to create a podcast around it, and it's just for you, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to, it's exactly what you want it to be. I think you have to do it. I will definitely encourage you to do it, and I will,
all right.
I'll walk you through the process. It's really easy to make a podcast. Like you just need a microphone.
You'll have to send me, or we'll have to reconnect a little bit later. And
yeah, I'll give you a crash course.
Just like using my iPhone to record, like just like even if it's just like like once a week, 30-minute monologue, like a rant on a topic or something, just to start off. Like I think even just that, or just force myself to like pick an idea and like I'm going to talk for 30 minutes and try to apply some lessons that I've learned, but try to make them like applicable to other people in other situations and extract some like practical, actionable advice, because all these the philosophy, and I read a lot of psychology and neuroscience, like my experiences as an artist, health and fitness. I mean, what I'm realizing, with a lot of the struggles that I have, I look at it. I mean, I kind of hit a point where I just got so fed up, and I finally started like really hammering down some of these like not daily, but like pretty consistent habits where I'm really just trying to like take control back of my physiology and of my brain, because of all of us who struggle with whatever it is, there's so much that you can do, whether that's meditation, exercise, eating right. And I know we talked about this last time, and I had like just started like dabbling in it, and then it fizzled for a while. But I've been really going harder core with like cold exposure, where I'll go out and I'll buy a bunch of bags of ice, toss them in the bathtub, and I'll just take like a 3 to 5 minute ice bath. And I've been doing it like 3 to 5 times a week. And it sucks while I do it, but I feel a million times better after. Like, it'll change the course of my day. And when I'm tired and depressed all the time, and I just, you get fed up, and it's like, all right, I'm going to do this thing that absolutely sucks for 5 minutes, because the other 23 hours and 55 minutes are going to be way better if I do it. And I notice that I'll do that, and I get out, and next thing I know, if you can force yourself to like dip into a bathtub full of ice water and stay in there, hard shit becomes so much easier for the rest of your day. And I'll notice that I'll do that. And then next thing I know, like, I'm packing up my painting stuff and I'm getting in my car to go paint, or I just start cleaning or taking care of some other stuff. It like just gets me going. And I'm playing around with like trying to experiment with how that affects creativity, like just expose myself to the cold. And I know that there's all kinds of neurochemical stuff happening when you expose yourself to that can translate into focus and creativity and all kinds of other things. And that's another way of like integrating all these different areas of my life, because as a kind of a fitness professional who has experimented and learned a lot about the body, and then translating that into how it affects your mind and your creativity and your mood and your happiness, and all these things are just like so closely integrated. And that's just another kind of element of learning experience that I have, that I know not everybody's like going to be excited to jump into an ice bath, but there might be people out there, and I talk about this a lot with people, and you can say, oh, it's about exercise and recovery, and it helps with soreness. And maybe people think that I'm just trying to be a badass and like, oh, I'm going to expose myself. I'm going to take an ice bath because I'm a tough guy. It's like, that's one way to look at it. And it does make me feel tough. Like, you feel proud that you can force yourself to suffer in those ways. And I have like a little bit of a screw loose. So like, I get pleasure out of that sort of thing. But to put it in other terms that maybe other people would like to hear, is like, it really did come down to like, I was fed up with feeling crappy all the time. And I'm not one to put a pharmaceutical in my body at this point. A lot of the problems that I have is because I was on pharmaceuticals for a large chunk of my life. And once I stopped taking them is when a lot of problems started. So I don't want to add more problems to it. But there might be other people out there who are like, I might need to start doing some hard things, because they're going to translate into just feeling better. And that stuff snowballs, and I've been doing this ice bath stuff for a few months. I've been like gradually adding more ice and staying in there longer. And it's one of those things where like, if I can keep up with this over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years, and like every little bit that it like energizes me and like alters the course of my day, and you just add that up over time. And that stuff's really powerful. And the same thing goes for exercise and eating right and meditation, taking care of your body. dominoes into every other area of your life. And that's so important.
Right. Yeah. Alex Stroll was on the show, and he talked about, just at the end of like a hot shower, just spending like a minute and just turning the water as cold as it can get. And I think it can be that easy for people. You don't have to go out and buy ice. Maybe you can graduate to like an ice bath, but just that. I did it for like a week, and then every once in a while I'll do it too. And it really does make a difference. And I don't think it's about, necessarily like the uncomfortable feeling of it, although it is uncomfortable. It's like you said, it's forcing yourself to make a change, to make yourself in that position, to make yourself uncomfortable. And I think you're absolutely right. People need to take control of their physiology, take control of their brain, take control of their day, realize how much they're autopiloting in so many different regards, whether it's social media, maybe, put your phone away for a day or put your phone away for an hour and take note of how you feel. Like, take note of the difference, take note of the way your day is different, or the next hour of your day is different from, taking that 1 minute in cold water, or, taking that 1 hour break from social media, or not watching that one TV show. Like, just take note of the difference. And I think when you can kind of document it, or at least mentally note the positive changes that thing, that action, that thing that you did for yourself did for you, it can be a game changer, because like you said, it snowballs. Then you want to make other changes and see like how far you can push it, how much control you can take over your brain and over your life.
Yeah, and that's really that, and I talked about my philosophy dissertation idea. I'm like, that's ultimately what I think it comes down to is, given the environment that we live in today, that is radically different from what it was even 10 years ago, and especially 15, 20, 30 years ago, it is imperative to take responsibility over your cognitive resources, your attention span in your brain. That this is our most precious resource that we have, is that thing inside of your head. And there are so many forces around you that maybe you don't even realize it, are trying to grab at it and pull it in so many different directions. And you can wake up and realize, what the heck happened to the last 5 years of my life? I've just been jerked around by anything and everything, and I don't even like myself, and I don't like where I'm at, and I don't like how I'm spending my time every day. Whoa, I got to get back into control. And that's really is a message that I'm learning and struggling to put into practice, but it's also something that I think like needs to be said.
Absolutely. Well, and now you can say it in your new podcast coming soon.
Yes, and you're gonna get on me about this. So
yes, I will. I promise.
If you don't hear from me, I need you to hold me accountable for this. So,
well, the thing is, like, I think especially with podcasting, like, I took like a course and like all this stuff before I started it, but I knew I wanted to like hit the ground running. But you really don't need to take a course. You don't need to know that much, and there really doesn't have to be that much pressure either. Like, just definitely create it for yourself first, and don't worry about, I mean, it's like anything else. It's like anything else we talk about on the show. It's like, just create it for yourself. Don't worry about like where it's going to end up, or what it's going to, like if it's going to win any awards or anything like that. It's just like something for yourself first, and then figure all that other shit out later.
I'm sure having that attitude is probably what, in a lot of ways, is what creates some of the best ones, and so that's a good point.
Yeah. The other thing is, has anybody ever told you you're a really, really good writer?
I've having an academic background, and I've had blogs that I've started and stopped, and other kind of little writing things, but I've been writing more lately, and it feels good to get things down.
Because even in your last email that you wrote to me, I was like, wow, this is like profoundly well written. Like, so I don't know, like, think about that too, man.
Yeah, no, I do. And I've done a few, I'm up and down with the social media, but and this has really been hitting me lately, is there been a few social media posts where I just like, man, like, I just got to get this stuff off my chest. And it's like, and just drop it on social media and just get it out there. Maybe it'll start a discussion. I dropped something in the Facebook group too that I've been thinking about a lot. But yeah, just writing down my thoughts and a lot of what I explained to you about the ice bath stuff. Like I actually have a post that I haven't shared yet, but I wrote out this whole kind of explanation of why I do it. And I took a picture of myself taking the ice bath. So I'm doing a little bit of the social media stuff and writing. I mean, I'm going to have to get writing a lot more pretty soon too. And I thought even having like, as I'm pursuing this PhD and writing a dissertation and researching, kind of as I work on that, you know, doing some blogs or other writing material to go along with it that I could share on social media or for more popular audiences along the way is another thing that I've been kicking around of just trying to get a little more serious about, I guess more about expression, just expressing myself and communicating things that I feel at this point need to be communicated.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's finding ways to get things off your chest, whether it's painting, whether it's podcasting, whether it's writing, or whether it's just jumping on Skype and just talking it out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really necessary to get it out of your brain so you can kind of move on, so you can get all those kind of ducks in a line, like mentally speaking, so you can kind of just move on with life and move on to new ideas.
Yeah. And you know, one of the just kind of similar to this, and this is something I've started doing. I have a couple friends all like in various parts of the country that, you know, it's really hard to stay in touch with people. Everybody seems to be moving around so much. I have so many different acquaintances and friends and family all over the place, and it's just tough to keep up with. And you notice that things start to kind of degrade into just texting or a social media message or like maybe every month or two you'll catch up if you have time to talk for an hour or two. But what I've been doing with a few of my friends is the voice recorder app on the iPhone is I will just record like anywhere between like 1 and 10 minutes, and we'll just talk and just update each other and share advice or support and then just text that message. And when they have time, they'll listen to a longer message. They can hear my voice, they can hear my emphasis and my passion and my emotions. And then, you know, you can get a lot more in that way. And so it's kind of been really nice to have that. And I think there's probably, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people could benefit from that sort of thing. And I've been like trying to introduce it with like even other friendships where I'll just start dropping them voice recorded messages where like I can get more off my chest. They can get more information out of me, and it's more personal than just a quick text or just catching up every couple months or something. It doesn't quite always do the trick. And it's just another way of just getting things off my chest and processing. Because, you know, you think you have something going around in your brain, but then when you actually try to put it into words or write it down, it's actually a lot different. And having to do that process really helps.
For sure, yeah. Communication comes down to like its most basic form these days. Like as easy as it is to like jump on a Skype call with somebody, or it's very cheap to make a phone call to somebody, it's like, yet we still drop that basic text like when we have to.
Yeah.
It's so sad. But I like that. It's like finding ways to like amplify the conversation and still not have to like necessarily schedule a call with somebody. Like when you're both available, it's like saying what you need to say, getting it off your chest, or updating them, and also taking back control. Like we were talking about before, it's like taking back control of your relationships too.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, I'm glad we were able to take control of our friendship too here today.
No, seriously. and I'm sorry I canceled last week. Like I said, it's been like kind of a hectic transition, I've been, like I said, things really haven't worked out for me as planned, and I didn't really have anything big to report in terms of like having an interview, and I was feeling a little self-conscious, but I ultimately did realize, I was like, you know what, like there's a lot of crap out there, and there's a lot of podcasters and like internet gurus who like they're just it's just like gross, like just the way they're going about it. And I've always thought that what you're doing, like it's very genuine. and it seems like you're just like a good guy who's trying to help. And it reminded me, like, you know what, like you're like a friend, and there's no reason why I can't just jump on this call and let you know what's going on with me without it, being a big deal. And so yeah, like a lot of appreciation for what you're doing, because I can see through a lot of the crap out there, and I get it. Like when if you have there's a lot of people with millions of followers and all kinds of stuff, and I'm sure it just changes at that point, and it's hard to be personal and genuine when it gets to that point. But I like what's going on with your creative push. It seems in the Facebook group, and even a lot of other people in that group I've connected with, and I get comments and exchanges from people there, and it's real nice.
Well, thanks, man. It's good to have you as a part of the team.
Yeah. How's everything going with you and your projects and the book? We haven't really gotten into that much.
Well, it's good. I started that morning miracle thing, which is pretty helpful. Past couple days I haven't, because I was on vacation for the past week. Started writing the book, and it's like an enjoyable process. You heard about trying to do it in Cramuary. It was just like a bad decision. But that's going good, and the podcast is going good, and work's okay. I still hate it, but so we're gonna figure that out soon. My wife is getting her BCBA.
Oh, really?
Or she takes the test at the end of August, and then she'll be able to get a job hopefully up in Philly, and then we'll probably be moving up there then. So I'm kind of on hold for like trying to figure out my career change, figuring out what I'm going to do. But that's the situation now. So
cool. Do you think you would keep doing the casino industry?
No. If I can help it, I want to get out of it. So I've been applying to different kinds of jobs, but like I said, I'm putting it on hold for now. I'm trying to like, there's not many podcasting jobs, but I really like podcasting. So
yeah. I mean, there could be, I mean, there are like networks and things like that I'm sure there's other roles that you could take while you're still working on building your own.
Right. We'll see. But so that's that. So I did record this.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, if there's little nuggets that you think.
The whole thing was awesome. My thanks once again to Matt for coming on the show. Hopefully this made you rethink the way that you are approaching your creative life, your creative journey. I think Matt is a perfect example of somebody who thinks about the way that they approach life and the way that life affects them. And he's not afraid to make big shifts, to make a move across the country, or a dramatic change in career, or the type of art he does, or the places that he does his art. I think oftentimes we go down these paths that we've predetermined a year ago, that we're going to go on this journey, we're going to reach this goal, we're going to become this thing. And we get so stuck on getting to that thing that we're not willing to see the signs around us on the journey to change things up and to go for a different goal. It's great to have those big goals. It's great to have these grand desires, this thing that you want to define yourself as, but you also have to be willing to deviate from that path. When life is nudging you in a different direction, sometimes it's okay to go in that direction. And especially when your body and your heart and your soul and your mind is telling you that this isn't right. Even though you previously so desperately wanted to get to that goal, you have to be willing to change things up. And there was also that great section in there about social media. As you know, this is something that I've been talking with guests about recently, something that's been on my mind. So it was great to kind of hash it out with Matthew about how detrimental social media can sometimes be to not just our time, but also our mental well-being. And I think it's so important to think about these things. And that's why I'm really excited that he is kind of going down that path with his PhD, and also thinking about these big questions that can really help us. And he had that great quote. I think today, in order to live a fully good human life, we need to develop new types of virtues that enable us to manage these new technological forces and preserve, protect, and be stewards of our own brains and attention span. I mean, this is so true, and especially for creative people, especially for people that maybe struggle with different resistances of wondering what other people think about them, or trying to put the perfect version of themselves out there. That's one thing, but also what you put your eyes on all day. what you put your brain through all day by going on social media all the time and by scrolling and scrolling and looking. Like we talked about in the episode, that's the whole design of these applications, of Facebook, of Instagram. It's to hack your attention, to literally steal your brain power, the brain that was, meant to hunt and gather and survive the elements to get you through that life. Now you have to navigate through this crazy world that we don't know how to navigate. We do have to develop new virtues, and it's up to you to take inventory of what is positive for you and what is negative for you, how much time you're spending doing things that aren't helping you out, and how much time you are spending doing things that are helping you out. Hey, if your creative push is something that is negatively affecting you for whatever reason, if it is pulling you in the wrong direction, or if it is distracting you, or you're using it as an excuse to listen to the podcast instead of getting to your creative passion, stop listening. Seriously, get to your creative passion. That's the only purpose of this podcast. So really take an honest inventory and take control of your brain and take control of your attention and your precious time, and make sure you are putting it to good use. On our next episode, we have Misled. Misled is Joanna Henley, and she is an artist, illustrator, and art director based in East London, and she comes on the show next week for a very inspiring talk about taking control of your day, your week, your month, your life. We talk about her 8-year gap in her art and what got her going again, and also we talk about her 2 new instructional drawing books. If you want to find out more about Jo, you can head to her website, misled.co.uk. That's MISSLED.co.uk. Or on Instagram, she has miss_led1. Or we'll have that all linked up at today's show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/304. But that's all I've got for you today. So hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. And we will be here for you next week if you need that push again. I love you all so very much. Go get some amazing work done, and we will see you next week. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.